Hi, my name is Valerie Kraft, and I'm a senior sociology major at Birmingham Southern. I'd first like to thank the entire sociology department for supporting me and helping me through this process of my research. Now to get started. So the goal of my research and the research question is to answer, how do outside pressures on working mother create role conflict and cause stress? Now, the stress I'm looking at is given from media and as well as family and friends. And unfortunately, the media and family friends has the stress from media and family friends has become a social norm in our society, and it's very under acknowledged. The first theory that I'm using to look at my research is the reproduction of mothering by Nancy Chodorow. The moral mother was a construct she had in her research. The moral mother is the idea that as the only way for a mother to be successful is for her to be nurturing and supportive and emotionally supportive. And this moral mother construct completely ignores that there's more to a woman and more to a mother than just being emotional supportive to her husband and to her children. Another aspect of Trotter's research is behavioral conformity and individual intention. Behavioral conformity is conforming your behaviors based on what society says, yet there is still an individual intention aspect. This goes for mothers as in they could have the individual intention to become a mother, thus they conform their behaviors for it. But at the same time, society is conforming their behaviors, so as well as they do want to be a mother, they couldn't see the possibility of being anything else. Second theory that I looked at is the second shift by Arlie Hochschild. The goal of the second shift was to look into the lives of women who work full-time and are married, who have husbands who work full-time, and who does that domestic work when they come home. So the domestic work around the house and taking care of the kids, this is what the Hochschild labeled the second shift. And she interviewed 50 couples, and she found that even though the women were working full-time, they were still also the one doing the second shift. Along with her research, she came up with 3 different ways to categorize women. So we have the traditional woman, whose main goal and main purpose in her view of her life is to stay at home and take care of her husband or kids and all the responsibilities at the home. And now we also have the egalitarian woman. Egalitarian woman is a woman who identifies herself in the same spheres, so the same job, the same activities as her husband, and sees her husband as an equal. They're both equals in the relationship. And the third type of woman is a transitional woman. And the transitional woman is a little bit between the two. She also interviewed the same couples as she viewed and she originally researched and asked the women what they prefer to be of these type of women, and the men what of the 3 type of women they prefer their wife to be. And the men said they prefer the traditional woman for their wife, and the mothers and the women preferred the egalitarian woman. So just keep a little dig into the second shift. The concept I want to dive into a little bit is gender role socialization. Gender role socialization is the roles assigned to a gender based off society. So a woman and a man are given different roles they're supposed to do because of their gender. And if they do anything other than that, it's looked down upon and it results in punishments by society. A result of gender role socialization is dangers from gender stereotypes. Now, there are multiple dangers from stereotypes in general because they don't look at the whole person. They only look at this one element of the person, just their gender, and not the whole person they are. Now, specifically for women, this is dangerous because it can keep women in a poverty hole and of people not believing they can do more than they can just because they're in this category of their gender. As well as the masculine role associations and feminine role associations, I'm sure you're all very familiar with. The masculine role associations are dominance, aggression, whereas feminine role are passive and subordination. Passive and subordination are 2 characteristics that immediately put a woman at a disadvantage, because if they're acting differently than this, people are like, what are you doing? And if they are not, and if they are doing that, it puts them in danger of being taken advantage of. Now, the motherhood ideology is constructed from gender role socialization. The motherhood ideology is the concept that mothers must be nurturing at home and just take care of their kids, and if they don't do this, they're not successful. This ideology is very dangerous and really limits a woman of what she can do in her career and what she can and how she is supposed to be as a mother and as a woman. Another concept I'd like to talk about is the mommy penalty. The mommy penalty is the idea of the job insecurity for mothers. This job insecurity comes from women having to take maternity leave and time off for different things because of their children. And unfortunately, studies have found that women are not as much in leadership positions as men. And so they're unable to say something and speak from the other side. They just are told, no, you're not going to get paid for maternity leave, or no, you can't take maternity leave, or we don't want you anymore. As well as there's just a lot of negative opinions surrounding working mothers. There's research that has found that people think that working mothers are less competent and less unable to fully be invested in their career. They look at the fact that they're mothers as a weakness and as a con in their identity as a person. Another concept I'd like to talk about is role conflict. So role conflict is what this project is all based around, and basically the definition of it is when one person occupies two or more roles and have different expectations. So there is a woman and she has a career, so she is employed, as well as she is a mother, so she has children. And both of these roles that she has are pulling at from the same energy source in the same time, and this can result from stress and result in conflict. Research has found that mothers dropping out of the workforce is most often the most common solution mothers have found to feeling this role conflict. And when looking at why they want to drop out, it's because this is what their mother did as a solution to the role conflict. Research has also found many pros and cons of working mothers, and one of them is that the pros that they'd be a great example for their children, as well as the obvious financial benefit of having more income. But they're more concerned in the cons of working mothers, that they bring home a lot of stress from work and could impact the child negatively, as well as they believe they don't have as much time for their children. And also that, can't remember what my third point was. But anyways, that is role conflict. So for my research, I am interviewing 6 full-time mothers in heterosexual relationships. And how I received my participants is by snowball sampling. Once I interviewed one mother that fit the criteria, I asked her if there were anyone else that fit the criteria of what I'm looking to do, of being a full-time mother in a heterosexual relationship, that would be interested in participating in my study. And so I did a phone call with 6 mothers, and this involved 6 interview questions and a short demographic survey. And the goal of these interview questions was to really hear their stories about family influence, media influence, discrimination they might feel at work, who does more of the domestic work, where do they get their support from, and just I wanted to hear about their lives balancing these two roles. My interviewees each received synonyms when writing up my research, but I did keep the same career as well as the amount of children they have. So Amanda was my veterinarian with 1 child, Ansley was my dentist with 2 children, Lisa was my nurse with 2 children, and Taylor was my assistant director at a college with 2 children. Rebecca was my attorney with 3 children, and Cassie was my alumni relations at a college with 3 children. So for my demographic survey, I had this chart to kind of show how their questions were answered. And so when it came to their race, they were all white. When it came to their education, all of them had nothing less than at least a master's degree. And so all of them, 50% had a graduate degree of some sort, and 50% had a professional degree of some sort. The average age of my participants was 33. And the average number of children my participants had was 2.5. And the average age of when they had their first child was 25 to 34, and their average income was $45,200 to $135,600. So all these women were in the middle income range. So with my interviews, I found 3 themes I'm going to dive in deeper with. The theme of generational working mothers, which is that the mothers I interviewed, they were not the first month. Their mother also was working, which made it seem like a norm for them. And my second theme is second shift struggles, just a struggle of when they come home trying to do everything they have to do there too. And my third theme found is media and family influence. The impact the media and family had, positive and negative. For my first theme, generational working mothers, when talking to each of these mothers and asking what made you think it was feasible to be both a mother and working full time, every single one of them said their mother did the same thing. So even if society as a whole said that's not possible, they've watched it happen. Amanda goes, I come from a strong line of working mothers, so I never questioned not working myself. She explained to me that her mom was a nurse and her grandma was a Rosie the Riveter. So this is just what she did in her family. Taylor even went as far to say that's in the town's network. This is what we are, a working mother town. This is just what we do. So that was very interesting that it went beyond just her individual family, but this is what her friends' parents and everyone she knew, everyone she knew growing up, both of their parents also worked. Now, on the contrary, their husbands and thus their mother-in-laws many times grew up in a different lifestyle than them. Their mom didn't work full time, or at least they didn't work until they were in school. So Ainsley said that her husband said this to her one day, I expect when we have kids, you'll stay home. She immediately responded, I did not go to school for this many years to stay home all the time. And then there's different comments they said their mother-in-laws would make about how their motherhood journey was so different than their own. My second theme is second shift struggles. And so when asking these women who did more of the domestic work and more of the second shift work in their house, every single one of them said, I'm the mental workload carrier, but my husband helps do the actual work. So this was very interesting that they were the mental workload carriers. And just when talking more to them about the second shifts and why, if they enjoy it, etc., Elise said to me, it's a place I find purpose because it's a place society tells me I should find purpose. Am I really that much of a product of what society tells me to do? Along with the second shift struggles came the pull of the different identities they had. Amanda says, I feel like I'm three separate people. I'm a mom, I'm a veterinarian, and I am my own person. As well as Cassie explained to me, she feels guilt. She feels when she isn't working a career, it's much a pang of what she's missing out with. But simultaneously, she feels bad if she's not spending time with her kids and more time in her career. It's constantly, as Taylor said to me, it's constantly an ebb and flow. You're never doing one better than the other. You're constantly pulling, and it's because they're pulling from the same energy source. Elise said to me that when she was thinking in her mind as a college student of what she wanted to major in, she immediately said, I'm going to major in nursing because it's a good career that I can still have enough time off with my children. And so in her head, society has embodied in her that yes, I have a career, but this is also something I have to do, and I have to find something to balance both of them, which is not something a man naturally thinks. So for my third theme is media and family influence. When talking about the different media and family influences these women had, everyone of most, I would say 4 out of the 6 said everyone had breastfeeding opinions. One mother said that her parents and her grandparents said, no, like you should be doing formula. And she's, but I want that feeling of feeling connected to my child, so I want to breastfeed. And her parents just had to stop giving her opinions. As well as Cassidy was telling me that media played a part in this because she was having trouble breastfeeding, and so she was having a lot of internal conflict of if it was okay to do formula. As then she saw billboards saying it wasn't okay to do formula. So that media really impacted her and made her emotionally negatively. And Ainsley says that with some of the things in her family, she feels like she doesn't have a choice. That this is what they wanted to do, and this is what she has to do. Whereas Rebecca said there is a lot of positive that can come from family. She says, we have a big family and I needed them and they needed me. So there's definitely very positive and negative from media and family influences. Now, when talking to these women about being a mother, as in this day and age, these interviews were conducted during COVID-19. And so their lives of mothers were a little altered during this time period. So when it came to all their homeschooling they were supposed to be doing, Cassidy said even before COVID though, she would see on the class Facebook page field trips she couldn't go on and just feel bad about herself. Rebecca told me that the other parents wouldn't ask her to bring anything for class parties and things like that because they felt like she couldn't handle doing all of that. So they both, Rebecca felt that they were looking at her being a working mother as a negative thing, and Cassidy internally was wondering if they thought the same thing when she wasn't as active at field trips and as present physically at her child's events. Elise says, when going back to the COVID-19 point, she says Facebook and other social media platforms can make other parents feel bad that they don't have the time and resources to do these same activities with their kids. Taylor told me, Facebook groups, mom groups are the devil. But at the same time, there were positives. Amanda said that she found a huge support group in mom Facebook groups. So media and family both influenced these moms heavily. I would say that media did influence some more from what I found, but there are pros and cons to each influence. So for future research, I would like to look into the coping mechanisms these mothers used to handle the role conflict they were feeling, as well as be interesting to interview single mothers because these mothers, they all told me that their husbands are a big reason they could do both of these aspects, do both of these roles in their lives well. Some limitations in my research are some of these mothers had prior interactions with me. This could be a pro and a con, and it could be a pro because I feel more comfortable with me, more willing to open up, but it could also be a con because I might know some of the people are talking about their stories. They might not tell me the full story, as well as the limitations of COVID-19 crisis. So these interviews were originally planned to be taking place in person, and because of COVID-19, they all took place over speakerphone, and this lost some of the human interactions that could have been very valuable to catch on with, the expressions, the tones, just being there in person that you can't make up for. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you for coming, and do you have any questions?